Well, I think there's certain things and there's certain Palesa, there's certain standards that we still must maintain. But I think there's still a decency about the way we behave as leaders. But, with the bad examples that we have, I really just think that we're creating problems for ourselves. And remember, if juniors report you to their leaders or to HR. The reality is, as long as you've done everything right, so what? I mean, there's still a notion of standards, and if people can't be corrected in terms of their behavior, then yeah, I don't really care about HR. I honestly don't care. And remember, part of my background is industrial relations and dealing with trade unions and that. Right, guys. So we spoke about this last week and what we prefer as our own way of being influenced. I wanted to move to the next slide in terms of that. Which of those work best for you? Who is the personal appeal person? Come on, we're friends. Who does, we mates. Surely you can turn a blind eye or whatever. Ingratiation, yeah, I hate this so much, where it's nothing short of manipulation. So it is praising and talking someone up in the hope that they'll look after you in the future. Yeah, and this one I hate. I think the moment you tell me policy says I will, I won't. I have a really bad reaction to that. And then coercive. It is about threats or making people's lives difficult. I think sometimes it could border on victimization. And then coalition, not dealing with the individual directly, but getting other people to get a person to change their mind. Any comments about those? Do you still observe them in the workplace? And can I just say, the one, if you want to really make me angry, is that my reaction is often not very pleasant. Any comments on those as a way of influencing? Okay. If we then move on, guys, that's fine. Right. So, in terms of the categories of influence that we have, the first one, overt, where it is so obvious that it's either manipulation or fear, or it's the persuasion or trying rules, etc. I think really good leaders find a magic mix between those. But I think you have to know your staff. You need to know the people you work with. And then obviously ecology, and we spoke about that last week, this idea of moving people around and putting them in open plan offices and making them share offices, etc. And then obviously that sort of charisma that we have. Right, let's look at the relationship between leadership and management. So we would have done a lot on this in your third year, and I know for some of you, third year is a long time ago. But when we think of leadership, one of the terms that often will define leadership is the idea of strategy, is the idea of giving direction, is the idea of being in charge of a vision and creating an exciting future for the organization, that kind of ambitious dream future, and then communicating that vision to people. So it starts with strategy. And one of the key differentiators between managers and leaders is that managers will create the strategy, they'll create the vision, but sorry, leaders will create the vision and create the strategy, and managers would then be expected to implement that. So if we look at some of the other elements within strategy, so the first one there, I think what we know about strategy is that your objectives serve as your endpoint, and strategy would indicate the road that you travel to get to that particular objective. And I'm not going to go through the cascading of objectives from vision to mission statement to long-term objectives. So the end point would be the objective. The end point would be the long-term objective. The strategy that would take us there would obviously be the road that we travel in terms of making that objective a reality. The one thing we know is at that level we have those grand strategies, and it's about entering new markets, it's about buying out competitors, it's about having corporate combination type stuff. Now we're not worried about that at this level. You would have done that at third year, guys. And then just in terms of strategy, my apologies, have I skipped? Yeah, the one thing that we see in terms of strategy is the need to express values, etc. So part of the strategy statement is often, once we have the vision and once we have the mission statement, we will then create the value statement. Who has a value statement? What does your value statement in your business say? Give me examples of extracts from your value statement. No problem, Charles, at all. No problem. I want to share something with you guys quickly. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so integrity, simplicity, caring, honesty, yeah, absolutely. Transparency, honesty, yeah, those are definitely them. 100% those are them. And we see that. And generally, when we write value statements, we create values to talk to each of our stakeholders, because the modern definition of strategic success is stakeholder wealth. So when we create value statements, we make sure that included in those value statements, we make some sort of mention of each of our stakeholders. Can I just quickly share this with you? And my apologies, it's just come into my mind. It's something that I often use when I discuss values. And in terms of leaders, hopefully I find that very quickly. Any comments about those comments from Gandhi, the world's the seven deadly sins of the world, as as things we can incorporate in your value statement? I don't know if I've shared this with you guys before. Please let me know. Have I shared this before? Okay. Any comments about that as potential ways and potential thoughts to guide your values? Thanks, Charles. Thanks, Tanya. Now, we would imagine that this was written over 100 years ago. Are they still relevant today? Are they more relevant now than they were back then? They're incredibly relevant. Well, that's the issue. Business without morality is what we have. I mean, we have this crisis of ethics. Absolutely, Mark. I often think if you're doing a strategic plan and you're doing your vision and your mission statement and your value statement, this is a wonderful, wonderful guide in terms of that. And if we look at that, those clips that I've asked you to look at, it's this stuff. I mean, we're in a world where politics doesn't have principle, and then the others. And I don't want to go into any details. Which one stands out most for you? Which one do you? Can I just say, when I think of tenderpreneurs, I think of that one, and that's just me being me and being a South African. Wealth without work. Why, Dylan? Walter, you're in Botswana, boy. You guys don't have tenderpreneurs. Sorry, Walter. Absolutely. Guys, I just think when we look at the world and when we talk about values, I know you do. No, I absolutely know you do. When we look at values, I think this is such a wonderful depiction of what absolutely knowledge without character. And also the fact that we have these incredibly bright people who can do the most awful things. And I don't want to pick on Elon Musk, but Elon Musk, who is possibly one of the brightest people around, I mean, he has lost these marbles. I see he's now endorsed the one person that I had on the other side. Yeah, Walter, can I also just say the one thing that irritates me so much is people drive these intensely really luxurious vehicles and then they drive with their cell phone by their ear because they don't know how to connect it to the Bluetooth. Um, so I'm pretty sure it will count in terms of the GD6 as well. Can I just say, I am very sure there are some GD6 drivers on this group. Anyone want to admit that they own a Toyota GD6? I can tell you now, someone here does, Walter. They just won't own up to it. Guys, so in terms of strategy, those values are very important, and having a value statement that talks to your different stakeholders, and you can see in terms of the discussion of those stakeholders there. No offense, obviously. Guys, and then just when we think of what else leaders would do and strategic planning, and we know that strategic planning is really the implementation phase of your strategic management process. And then strategic thinking is about looking into the future, about having a sense of the future, and it's about visualizing that ideal future. So, one of the things we see as an activity associated with leaders is creating a vision and getting people to buy into that vision and articulating that vision. A very, very important part of what leaders do. And then, yeah, generally we expect senior managers, executive managers to do that. So if we look at the idea of strategic leadership and managers and employees lower in the organization, I think the first one is about positioning your organization effectively. And also this idea that the job of a leader is to make sense of the insanity, the complexity, the confusion that lives in the environment. I wonder who on this group would have predicted the government of national unity? Who foresaw the government of national unity? Because that's the job of a strategic leader. Anyone here foresee that we would have a GNU? Russigan, neither did I. Tanya, neither did I. When we think of how insanely confusing the world is, I mean, a government of national unity, who would have put money on that? Who would have strategized around that? It's a good thing, can I just say, but I see that it's now in trouble in Cape Town as well. But I would never have predicted that. I think it's one of those impossibilities. It had never even entered my thought process. And I lecture strategic management, which is really embarrassing, actually. Guys, and then just in terms of, yeah, well, absolutely, Dylan. But also I think sense had to prevail at some point. Yeah, you're right. I mean, but it was we didn't need a revote. I mean, I think we would have just had a really divided parliament that would have not achieved anything. As else we expect from strategic leaders is this ability to balance multiple tasks and balls and roles. And then it's about this idea of leading through others. It's about sharing your vision and managing by wandering around and getting people to buy in to that ideal future that you've created. And then, yeah, so when we think of strategic leadership, I've done all of these things already. The one I want to mention is that strategic leaders are light on their feet. They are able to bob and weave with the best of them. And we can't take anything away from Ramaphosa because he bobs and weaves with the best. Because he is still president and somehow has maneuvered, yeah, himself into that position. And then you can see some of the other stuff. I like that word. It's about inspiration. It's about getting people to buy into your exciting future and getting people to make a difference based on the vision that is created. As just to look at what it means to be a strategic leader, I think the first one is about building knowledge of the environment. How difficult is that in the world we find ourselves in now? How incredibly difficult is that? We've just seen that no one could have predicted GNU. What else can't we predict at this stage? Anyone want to predict what will happen in the American election? It just changes, Tanya. It's an impossibility. We're at a place in the world where we can't be surprised by things anymore because everything is a surprise. Everything is a surprise. And then it's personal leadership. And generally, we expect a lot from strategic leaders. We expect people. Okay, Atle's got a message there. Then we expect people to manage by wandering around, to provide a good role model, to be a good role model, and then understand the business. And then this idea of getting people to perform, to learn and update their skills. And yeah, the reality is this comfort with change. I think people are so fed up with change that that is a lot to ask. And then obviously your background starts much lower in the organization. Other ways of describing strategic leadership. I think the first one is an attitude towards society. Why is it essential that businesses now take into consideration their impact, their contribution, the difference they can make in society? Why is that essential? Can businesses survive without society? And why does society expect so much from businesses? Why does society expect so much from businesses? Yeah, it's about being for the people. I might have shared this stat with you guys. It really is, Tanya. People are so aware. You have blogs, you have the internet. People are very aware what's happening in the world. And we want to support the good guys and we want to support businesses that are good. I don't know if I shared the stat with you, but if we look at, and if I have my apologies, if we look at the top 100 wealthiest economies in the world, more than two-thirds of those economies are businesses. And when you think of the power that those businesses wield, it is logical to understand that we would want businesses to make a positive contribution. And just to say what I said again, if we look at the top 100 wealthiest economies in the world, more than two-thirds of those are big business. So it's feasible for a place like Google to buy itself a country. It has a greater GDP than most countries. Has anyone ever thought of that as a reality of how wealthy and potentially powerful businesses are? Anyone surprised by that stat? Not, and yeah, I agree, Tanya. I mean, the reality is businesses make so much money, but we don't think about how wealthy they really are. The second one, guys, is this attitude towards yourself. I think we need to realize as a strategic leader, you're still the strategist, you're still the manager, you're still the leader. But the one thing that we need to remember is that there is an expectation as to the way we do that. Oh, absolutely. 100%, Bill. 100%. Guys, you can look up BlackRock if you want. Can I just say, when you get a chance, please watch those 4 video clips. It is a contradiction in that the first 2 video clips in the feed. It is a contradiction of that. And we expect leaders to be decent, and I'm just going to use the term decent. Yet we see so much really nasty, indecent behavior from leaders. Guys, and then also just to look at the business from your company perspective and how everything is linked together. And yeah, and then this strange notion of stability and change. Anyone want to try and explain what stability and change means? How can you be stable if you talk about change? How can you be stable if you're talking about change? Surely that's an oxymoron. I don't know how to explain it, but it we need stability in an organization because without stability, things would go haywire. Um, it does help with productivity. So we need those moments of stability. But the truth is, those moments of stability are just there so that we can deal with the present, with the realization that built into our stability is the need to avoid any sort of momentum loss for the next change. So having, and I was trying to draw it and I really can't, but having stability is important because policies promote, um, absolutely, Mark, you have to build change in your planning. Policies and procedures, etc., promote stability. But the truth is, and we need that in that stability, there is the sense of being ready, and as Mark says, as part of your planning, to change for the next whatever insanity is happening. It is quite a difficult thing to do. And the reality is, if you don't do that, you become stale very, very quickly. So, yes, we have policies, yes, we have procedures, but the truth is, everything in the world is temporary, and that temporary stability is needed so that we can get stuff done with the need to get ready for the next change. Guys, and then action and reflection. I think the truth is that learning and constantly learning from what you've done and from your mistakes and from your successes is absolutely essential. The one thing that overarches all of this, guys, is the need for resilience. I think if we think of resilience in leadership, the truth is you will be knocked down, and people will be knocked down. And it is adaptability, and people will be knocked down 100 times, but it's the ability to get up from being knocked down. Um, can give, yeah, maybe someone else can explain that differently. But if you're not resilient, you will not survive. Who's taken some knocks in business and they've had to get get back up from those knocks? I think every single person takes knocks. I think every single person, if you're in a management position or in a leadership position, have stood up from being knocked down, because that's what resilience is. And part of resilience is almost in an organization building in the concept of resilience. And when things get difficult, you will remind your followers of, remember back when we were knocked down and how we got up, because resilience becomes a way of doing and a way of thinking. It becomes a pattern of action. Any comments about resilience as underpinning that? The question is, how do you build resilience into an organization? And you do it by reminding people of back when we got up repeatedly. Right. So, guys, if we look at leadership, you would have done this in third year. Who remembers this from third year? I've got some of my third year students here who are now doing postgraduate. Maybe I should ask them. Who remembers those concepts? What is absorptive capacity? What is adaptive capacity? And what is managerial wisdom? You should have all three. Okay. And just remember, wisdom doesn't come with old age. You could be young and have wisdom. I know of old people that are the dumbest and non-wisdom people in the world. Who remembers these terms? It gives me an opportunity to do my art. I feel so empowered right now. We talk about absorptive, adaptive, and managerial wisdom in terms of those capacities. The way absorptive capacity works, and forgive me for the analogy, but in the old days when we had our first hard drives, they were the silver disk that we wrote stuff onto, and we would save in files, etc. Now, all of you are too young to remember old hard drives, because we now have SSD whatever drives. And then sitting on that drive, there was this sort of spindle, and there was this little read write head on it. So I imagine your brain is like a hard drive. And every time you interact with a person, a thing, an event, you create a theory about that person, thing, and event. And that theory gets saved onto your hard drive. What really successful leaders do, they're able to take new information into their existing theories about the world. They then are very good at challenging their own theory, their own belief system, because sometimes the information from outside will contradict what they believe to be the rules of the game. And in terms of adaptive capacity, really good leaders are able to change that theory or their view of the world in order to stay aligned with the environment. So, absorptive capacity is the ability to take in information, to change your views of the world, and then obviously, adaptive capacity is the ability to make that change. Give me examples of theories of the world that you've had challenged and that you've had to change. Theories that you believe to be true of the world that you've had to change. Theories that you were convinced were going to be the rules of the game forever that you've had to change about the world? Come on, guys. Let me ask it to you this way. The first time you heard me online, what theory did you create of me? What were the words that went through your mind the first time you met me online? Because you would have created a theory about me. Anyone, I won't be offended. That country is absolutely Mark, 100%. Anyone want to tell me what they thought of me the first time we met online? Oh, Tanya, yeah, that is quite a sad one, actually, Tanya. I feel a little bit sad now. Yeah, it's wow, Tanya. It's an awful lesson to learn that, hey? Blessing, yeah. Let me tell you, generally when people meet me the first time, they think that I'm really awful, and people have really bad views of me, and then they change it too. What is your view of me now, Blessing? Awful lecturer, bully. I hate him so much. Other theories of the world? Absolutely, Dill. It really is. Yeah, it's something that, we grow up being told that hard work gets you ahead, and you create that theory. But in reality, hard work and a whole Um, wow, Charles. Yeah, there's some truth being spoken today. Okay, Chelsea. Yeah, no, well, it possibly is very, very true. It's very true. Guys, I think in business, we have all these theories that we believe will define business now and in the future. The truth is, every theory that you have about the world, and let me tell you, you have bazillion theories about the world. I think every theory will be questioned, every single theory. I mean, imagine the theory that in order to work, people have to travel to an office, have to sit in an office, etc., because you've got to, in order to manage people, make sure that they're in an office. And now we have work from home, and work from home is a reality. And work from home is a theory that we had to test. I mean, think of what AI will do, artificial intelligence will do in terms of questioning theories that we have about the world. AI will, if you don't change your theories, will destroy you, because the reality is it's part of our world now. So these theories essentially are created over time. And what we need is the ability to take in information, even if that information contradicts what we believe to be the rules that guide the world. And then adaptive capacity is the ability to change your theory, the way you look at things, the way you do things. And then lastly, managerial wisdom. I, I'm going to use the term gut feel. I think sometimes we have to deal with right versus right decisions. In the old days, decisions in business were right and wrong, but the moment you really add advanced technology into your decisions, you stuck with a decision that is right versus right and versus right. Now, all of you have written exams where you had to say the most correct option. And I think in the world of business, you often faced with a number of correct options, and you have to choose the most correct option. Any comments about that in terms of managerial wisdom? The world isn't clear cut, right versus wrong anymore. It is right versus right versus right. And technology does that. Any comment about that opinion? that the business world isn't right versus wrong anymore? Or have I got that wrong? In my mind, it's a world of right versus right versus right. Okay. Guys, just to explain the three concepts: absorptive capacity, yeah, the ability to learn, take information in. Yeah, absolutely, Tanya. But the company itself and the reality, I still think you often are faced with right versus right. But whoever runs the company might believe it's right versus wrong. And then the ability to change. And yeah, I think the reality is that it is the wisdom, it is this idea to see and understand what happens in the environment and the right versus right decision. I love this. I think really good leaders strike while the iron is hot, and I don't want to throw a bunch of platitudes around, but it is to take the right action at the critical moment when it's necessary. It is that sort of striking when it is ideal, when it's perfect. Is not waiting to catch up with others. It is taking the decision and action at the right time. If we look at how management ideas have evolved. I think initially it was about standardization, the belief that you could train a person in a narrow task and they would perform it. We had something called time and motion studies. I'm sure that I would have discussed this in first semester. If you ever get a chance, watch a video clip on the fastest pit stops in Formula One racing. It's still time and motion in reality, because there we measure every single movement, we measure every single action that is taken, and we practice until we get it perfect. And then, yeah, there was the Gantt chart, which is part of project management. I'm very sure most of you have seen the Gantt chart. At this stage, the ability to track how projects evolve in a sort of yeah, is it's asynchronous fashion. I think that's the term, guys. And then the old planning, organizing, leading, controlling, rubbish, and then the different principles. We looked at this when we prepared for the assignment. And then, just in terms of some of the older management ideas, Max Weber, the idea that we have these classifications of authority and the notion that legitimate authority is vested in a particular person, that it's the sort of traditional authority, that it comes from age and wisdom, and then charismatic authority, those personal criteria that attract people. And then, yeah, in terms of charismatic authority, and this is the concern that we have in the world today. I think it's about exceptional qualities. It is about those intangibles that attract people to a leader. Now, the danger with those charismatic things is that I think sometimes leaders become bigger than what they really are, and they behave in a way that sometimes resembles what we see in those clips that I've shared. Um, the truth from a charismatic perspective is that, yeah, leaders are charismatic, followers aren't. You'll see this theory a couple of times, and we will discuss it again. The great man theory comes from the sort of 1840s. And what it means is that we can we can allocate real successes to some great men in the world. A country that works on the great man theory is Russia. There is this real belief that the more powerful the Russian leader is, the more powerful the country is itself. So we allocate all successes and all authority to this single great man figure. And we have that in Vladimir Putin. He fits that perfectly because the belief is that you can't have small insignificant men make a big difference. And can I just say, I know it's sexist, but it's 1840. This idea of the great man theory. Comments about great man when we look at Trump and the Republicans. Does he fit that as well? That the success of an entire party depends on one great man? Yeah, absolutely. Though, any examples of other great men figures in the world today? Yeah, 100%. 100%. Any others? Kim Jong Un. Yeah, where we just see this notion of the great man, and often these great men make a real difference. Is it fair to include that person as part of that theory, and why, when we think of that guy in relation to Apple? Does he fit that idea? When we look at Apple, when Steve Jobs left Apple, it went downhill. And when he returned to Apple, I mean, it really, really improved. He definitely fits that great man notion. He really does, in terms of the difference he made at Apple. The truth, though, is Apple still is leaving a really big impression. Any, sorry, that's my cat tapping the printer so that the paper will come out. Any other great men in terms of business that we associate a particular person with the success of a business? Oh my word. Sorry, she does it so the thing would print and she could attack the paper. So what did you learn today? That Henny's cat has serious powers. Oh, and it'll happen again. I see my wife has taken the paper out. Oh, dearie me. Guys, other great men. We often think of Richard Branson in Virgin as part of that great man. What would happen to the EFF if Malema didn't exist? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we also see it with the EFF guys. The EFF is Malema, and Malema is the EFF. These great man theories are still there, but they are being questioned. But often during times of crisis, we can argue that we need a great man. I always think of the song from Shrek, and I know that it was around prior to that. We holding out for a euro. Anyone remember the song "Holding Out for a Euro" in Shrek? And the truth is that often during times of crisis, we need this great man. And yeah, I'm going to be very careful when I search what's going to pop up. Hold on a second. But the words to that, yeah, the lyrics to that, yeah, it's that, and it so describes the great man. Who knows the lyrics perfectly? Who's not seen this song? Oh gosh. And yes, it was sung by Bonnie Tyler. Most of you won't even know who Bonnie Tyler is. Who's not heard this song before? So that I can really feel old today. but it really describes this idea of this hero and the great man. Okay, guys, and then just in terms of some of the management models, yeah, this is a heck of an interesting model as well. What we look at in terms of the competing values framework, it is a model that depicts different cultures in organizations or different organizational cultures. And what the model says, it looks at two elements. How much flexibility do we allow in terms of our employees' behavior, or how narrow are we in terms of policies and controlling behavior? The second one is, where is our focus? Is our focus on surviving and making sure that everyone is okay in the organization, or are we there competing and getting in the ring and getting in the faces of our competitors? And then, sorry, the cat is on the printer again. And then obviously we look at those two um, quadrants, and they divide into these different management models. So the kinds of things that we have is, we know that some companies are very good at competing. Others are very narrow and controlling and maintaining standards. Then we get the creative, and then we get those companies where people work together. The one thing that we see out of this model is that it changes the view of managers, because traditionally managers were faced with either or in terms of solutions, in terms of inside the organization. What this model argues is that with advances in technology, it's not either or when we look at decisions, it is about both and. So it looks at the world very differently, because when you think of the world as either or, it means A or B. Here it's A and B and what else? It changes the way we look at the world. So the example there is, how do we promote quality and also cut costs? And traditionally it's either or, either quality or costs. Now it is this idea of both and, where we can bring together these positive elements in terms of competing as a business. If we look at the different cultures there, so here it really is collaboration, and you can see the kinds of behaviors that form part of that business. For me, the kind of organization that really promotes the both and is this here. Ethicality, new ideas, constant updates in terms of products and services, working together, and then constantly being light on their feet. But we can also see other options in terms of those organizations. Guys, and then just other definitions of management. Managers often sounding a lot less exciting when we look at these definitions. I think it really is that managers are about authority, and when we think of leaders, it is about purpose and change and excitement. This often sounds dull, and this sounds exciting. And it is the way we often think of managers. In terms of management, they deal with the change that leaders create, and they make sure that they implement that change and that vision in the organization. And another option to look at is, if we think again, direction and vision, etc., where managers deal with implementing the ideals set by leaders. Guys, and yeah, if we look at this definition, again, very much that you almost want to be a leader and not a manager. Because when you talk about creative artists and navigating chaos versus rationality control, it really is, and we need leaders and managers, obviously, And again, leaders there for change, where managers are there to implement and make the change come to life in an organization. Guys, and then just, I think we look at other definitions. I think the reality is that often you are a manager or a leader depending on how you view yourself. So I think in Western society, managers really sound dull, and then leaders are the dynamic, make the world better kind of individuals. And then we can also see that, leaders will allow us to change when managers promote stability. You'll remember this from first semester, so I'm not going to do that. I want to get to this slide. What this set of theorists argue is that you cannot separate managing from leading. You have to put a plus sign between the two. What they also argue is that there's certain things that leaders do incredibly well, and it's listening. And there is a wonderful term, and I don't know if I've discussed this already, where the argument is that a leader has the ability to make the mundane extraordinary. So most leaders have no more than a minute a day to interact with their employees. But really successful leaders will make that minute feel as something extraordinary. And whether it is something as mundane, and I know this is important, and my apologies for using the term mundane, as how is your day, how is your family, how are you doing? Because really it's small talk, but leaders have the ability to make that small talk feel extraordinary, the extraordinarization of the mundane. Any comments about that? Anyone have leaders that get that right? That just the 1 minute of how are you and your family becomes this astonishing event in your day. No problem, Jolene. Cheers, where just that one moment in a day becomes extraordinary. Anyone have leaders that do that really well? And please comment about that, the importance of listening. It talks about the importance of that. Okay, it really is about the human side. And it also shows how important others are, because one thing leaders have to do is they have to make the reason you're in an organization worth your while. Absolutely love this term. I really, really love this term. It really is it's about connections, and it's about deeper connections. Oh, wonderful, Palesa. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And knowing, and just something as mundane, um, it is about relevance and appreciation. And something as mundane as your birthday, that can turn your day around. It's that moment where you basking in the light. Love that term, because I think people get so busy and leaders get so busy that they overlook these small moments. But we also don't pay enough attention to the power of those small moments. Absolutely love that bit. I'm really, really like that. Guys, and then just the truth is, you can't separate leadership and management. We need management leaders or leader managers. I think the world is so complex that just being a leader or just being a manager is not ideal anymore. And we need leadership at all levels in the organization. Okay, guys, and then just in terms of the resilience bit, yeah, you'll remember I mentioned that part of resilience is remembering history, when we were knocked down and got up and survived. Any questions, any comments, guys, for tonight? Please watch those video clips. They're absolutely essential in terms of next week. There is a theory that we'll look at next week. I thought we might have got there tonight. Any comments, any questions, anything you want to share? Okay. Guys, remember the WhatsApp group? The WhatsApp group is still there. Um, it's an absolute pleasure, Charles. Please look after yourself. And then, if there's nothing else, guys, thank you so much for attending. Please have a good week. Remember the WhatsApp group. Remember your assignment. Can somebody quickly share the WhatsApp group link with Palesa? Thanks, Charles. Thank you, Jess. It's a pleasure, Bill. Absolute pleasure. Can somebody just quickly plug in the WhatsApp group link for Palesa? Cheers, Marcus. Cheers, Brett. Come on, quickly help me with that link, guys.